wasn't important until it was realized the funds weren't coming. How about that? The human factor has been completely subverted to what it always is, the bottom line, the dollar. So this is a great time to build bridges with parents.
That's where I was going to go next.
This is a great time to build bridges with parents. We're notorious, oh, parents are not involved. They don't care. Da, 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 da. There's some of those out there, but I believe most of them do care.
Hello, hello, all those beautiful faces. How we doing? How we doing? Stephanie checking in with another episode of Class Disruption, disrupting the status quo of education. And before we get into it, make sure you smash that like button. And of course, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe. It's that red button right down there and click the bell so you get notified every time. But the most important thing you could do, especially during this time of crisis when educators need each other, is share this video with other educators, with other students, because during this time, we got to take that power back. It's all on us. We're at home, isolated, and we got to make the thing happen still. So share this video and let's get into it. So today I have an awesome conversation with Dr. Teresa Sanders, right? And I'm not a fangirl of many people, but I'm a complete and total fangirl of her. I found her on Twitter. Make sure you go check her out and follow her because she spits that fire on Twitter. Let me just give you a little sneak preview of what she does. So things like this right here. I liken public schools to bad neighbors. The neighborhood is bad, but there's still a nice few homes and some nice people still live there. But as time passes, the nice people move out. Then the criminals control the neighborhood. The cops know it, but ignore it until something very bad happens. Or something like this. Never believe there's inadequate funding in education. The same money we don't have to meet the students' needs so they can achieve academically in school is spent on resources and support they need so they can achieve academically in prison. And I'll tell you, she takes no prisoners in her tweets. And then finally, ever relevant and really connected to what we're talking about today is the push of K-12 online to avoid COVID-19 will likely be an expensive flop. Remember all those kids we didn't teach to read and write? Newsflash, online learning is primarily reading and writing. How about save the money and use it to improve literacy? Now that would just be a little bit too logical, Dr. Teresa Sanders. And she had been in education for years and years, lots of special education, and just she knew that the system wasn't doing what it was meant to do. It wasn't serving those students. And so she pulled herself out and she started her own small school. It's called Safari Small Schools. And she does homeschooling with kids. And she just has a lot of knowledge to drop on us. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this interview.
Dr. Teresa Sanders, thank you so much. I'm a total big fangirl of yours, so it's like a little surreal right now. And, it's a little bit of a crazy time. So thank you so much for connecting with me. And why don't we just start off by you letting everybody know who you are and what you do?
Well, Steph, thank you so much for having me. It truly is an honor because I really feel what you do. I'm Dr. Teresa Sanders. I'm an educator. I'm on year 14 now. My initial industry of employ was community mental health when I lived in California. Moved to Texas in 2005 and became an educator. Loved it, still love it. We just have to love it a different way now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Every day is like an evolving situation, but I know what you mean generally.
Yeah.
So, what really caught my eye was on Twitter is you talk a lot about like school reform, and that's, I'm very much into like, the instructional side, but definitely into the policy side as well.
Absolutely.
And one of the reform movements that you like to talk a lot about is like school choice. And it's pretty hotly contested by a lot of those more traditional stakeholders, such as the unions and like longtime public school teachers. So if you could just share, like, what's your perspective on school choice and how can people like become more educated on this topic and become involved if they want to?
Okay, so as it relates to school choice, I'm in my old age, I've just gotten just really pragmatic. So as it relates to school choice, I say let's go with what works. And what we're currently working with in the public schools is just not working. I have no shame about saying it. I'm very open with it now. I have moved myself out of the public school arena so I can talk now. You know, all of my colleagues and friends who are still there, I love you guys. I'm all the way behind you, but I know you guys can't talk as freely as I can. It's not working. It's broken. And all of what we're putting into it, the money, the time, the effort, it's giving an illusion of education. It's not fair to the kids. It's not fair to their families. But what we're not thinking of also is that these kids will eventually be adults and they won't have anything. And so we are setting them up to fail. And on a human level, that should be unconscionable to everybody. So as it relates to choice, my thought is every parent should be informed, which they're not. Every parent should be informed and they should have a choice. And if what's available now in the public system is not working, then their tax dollars should be able to follow them anywhere that they choose that is working.
And so, like, I know one of the biggest kind of from the other side, the response to that is, well, when you do that, you're draining dollars from the public system. And yeah, I don't necessarily, it's really hard for me. I've done a little bit of research, but I just don't understand that argument, I guess. Like, I don't see how it's draining dollars. So can you maybe like bring a little bit more nuance to that angle?
Sure. So what happens is whenever a student attends school and attendance is taken at a certain time, if that child's rear end is in a seat, then the school receives federal funding for that day. If the child's not there. So at one school that I worked with, it was 10 o'clock. I don't know if that's nationwide, but at one school I worked at, it was 10 o'clock. So if the child was not in the seat at 10 and showed up at 10:15, the school's not getting paid for that. But if the child was there at 10 o'clock, anytime up to 10 o'clock, then the school gets the federal funding for that. Well, okay. So if you take a child and remove the child from the system altogether, the school is not getting any federal funding for that child anymore. Yes, when you pull children out and put them somewhere else, if we could take those funds with us, that would be taking money out of the system, vouchers or however they want to do it. However, the funded system as it is, where the money is now, is not working. So what? If you take the child, move the child somewhere else and take that money with them, it's not working in the first place. So clearly money is not the situation here, because with the funds, it's not working. You see, so with the funds, it's not working. So then why does the child need to stay there? Or, okay, the child can leave, but the money somehow stays. No. The people who pay the taxes really should have a say. Okay, well, if the student wants to be homeschooled or go to a private school or go to a charter school or whatever kind of school, that money that the taxpayers, property owners are paying, why does the school get to keep it when the child is there no longer, when the child wasn't being educated there in the first place?
Those are all great questions. Yeah, I know we definitely do the attendance game at my school. I mean, and it's good. Like, we should be working our butts off to get every single kid there in the seat every day, like, no doubt. But you know, it seems like the incentives are a little bit different than that we actually want that kid to get an education. It becomes a money game, it becomes a numbers game, and it's not really with the best interest of the kid in mind necessarily.
No, it's not. And actually, when I worked in life skills once, and I noticed something, that I had one student who was frequently late, sometimes as late as 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Like 1 o'clock, really? Okay. At first, admin was not aware how late that student was coming in. But I noticed when I shared just how late that student was coming in every day, immediately that was put to a stop. Truancy got involved, and because wait a minute, all this time, this child's not coming on time and we're not getting the money for that. When they found that out, then they started moving towards this child needs to be here at this time. It wasn't important until it was realized the funds weren't coming. And so it's just, and the student herself was, I mean, she's fine. I mean, whenever she had her things going on and whenever she could get there, she got there, whatever. But the student couldn't drive herself there. She was not able to. The parent would get the child there whenever. Well, no, we're not getting any money for that. Oh, no, now she needs to get here. Now she has to be here. This, and this. When nobody knew how late she was coming, it wasn't a problem.
Right. Yeah. That's how I feel too. Like, money is important and data, the numbers, they do matter to an extent, but it's got to be about people. And I think, in light of this whole coronavirus and school closings, it's putting an interesting light on all of these issues.
Yes. I'm surprised at how not prepared schools were with a disaster plan. We didn't have anything like this, but 9/11 was pretty big. And it was so long ago, I wasn't in education at that time, but 9/11 was pretty big. It put
especially out here in New York City, like, I mean, it was more contained to this area for sure, but like New York City's acting like they don't know what to do right now.
Yeah. And the whole world is, I mean, all of the schools here, same thing, like, okay, what are we doing? And I guess, and I'm not blaming anybody, I mean, because I don't have any answers either. No, that's not true. That's not true.
I got a few answers.
I've got answers, but I don't think they'll like my answers.
Right.
What we're doing now is we're scrambling to come up with something to make sure we don't lose those federal dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can prove that they're educating the students remotely, then the dollars come. If not, then I'm assuming that the money doesn't come. So we're not, let's put something in place to make sure these kids don't regress. It's, let's put something in place so we're not losing out on any money. That's a thumbstacks down for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's crazy that any of the federal government wouldn't immediately say like, no, health matters first, like humans matter first.
Yes.
And even like the DOEs out here in New York City, we need to make sure our kids are getting the highest quality of instruction and da 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 da. And it's like, can we just like make sure they're okay first?
How about that?
That's what I've been trying to do all week. Yeah, and the teachers.
Yes.
I've been a wreck myself, like, and I would consider myself somebody who handles these things well, but it's been rough out here. And then I'm just getting emails, okay, we're gonna start online instruction, da 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 da. And I'm like, well, whatever happened to the email I sent about like, I'm scared? Are we gonna respond to that?
How about that? The human factor has been completely subverted to what it always is, the bottom line, the dollar. And it's so funny that you're talking about, you're going to be going online and you're thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do here? Or how does this actually work? The publisher that I typically publish with, we put together a pretty quick, basic how-to for teachers like yourself who find themselves being thrust online. And I'll be sure to get the link to you.
Yeah, definitely.
It's free. Yeah, I'll get the link to you and I'll get a copy of it to you and you can share it. It's for everybody who is being thrown out there to teach online and they're not ready for it. I've taught online for years. So for me, it's nothing, but for people who haven't done it, not to mention the fact that you're still worried about the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
You have your own child or children that you still need to, like, they're on your mind. And so you're coming up with a new platform, a new way to teach. You don't even know where to begin, and school's out in 8 weeks. I was thinking to myself, why don't we scratch the school year? Feds, give the schools the money and just stop. Just give them the money. And here's a thought, let them use the money to come up with a disaster plan, technology. And two, roll out some type of online pilot. So that way, if ever something like this happens again, we know what the fallback is. We know how it works. We've been trained on it, and then we just do it. Also, this is a great time to build bridges with parents.
That's where I was going to go next.
This is a great time to build bridges with parents. We're notorious. Oh, parents are not involved. They don't care. Da, 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 da. There's some of those out there, but I believe most of them do care. Some people just don't know what to do. Some people work odd hours or they work school hours. They just don't know what to do. So we can be the ones to go to them and say, hey, you know what? You don't have to be involved here at the school. Here's some things you can do to support your child's learning. You said a student just called you, so you could be like, hey, let me talk to your mom right quick. So Barbara Jean could be working on this, and this over the next couple of days. If I email it to you, will you print it and give it to her? Then real instruction is happening. Something that you know Barbara Jean needs to work on. You're now talking to her mother about it. You're sending it to her. Barbara Jean gets it back to you, and then Barbara Jean still gets to call you. I did it. I turned it in.
Yeah, we don't have too many Barbara Jeans up here in New York City, but I know what you mean.
Okay, I'm just trying to tell you, see, so it's like it would work. And that's just one of many ways that we could be doing things instead of, whoa, let's throw distance learning in there really quickly when we don't know what the kids have at home. Are they going to be doing their work on phones? I live out in the country, so the internet connection can be like, stop it. And so my thought is, when you don't know all the workings and stuff, is this really where we want to just start piling money? Because it's going to cost money to do.
Exactly.
And school's going to be out in 8 weeks.
And I do wonder also at the same time, like, how are we disaffecting teachers by constantly saying that, oh, they need teachers, they can't survive without their schools, and like, at what point does like stuff like that become offensive to parents? Because I mean, all my parents that I spoke to today were very receptive and open and like, what can I do? Like, some of them are like, when are you sending work? We want, you know, so I just wonder how much we're underestimating our parents and kind of like, I guess, enabling this behavior that we say we're trying to get rid of.
Holy moly. So when you get off of this broadcast, you can go to my feed, and just today, within the last couple hours, I mentioned to somebody that low expectations and assumptions are a big part of the failure that we're experiencing. This person stated something to the effect of, well, what about our poor parents? They can't do it. Poverty alone is no reason for failure. There are lots of reasons for failure, but being poor, standalone by itself, is not a reason for failure. It's just not. There's too many people who've succeeded that come from poor beginnings. That situation, I mean, I answered everything that this person said. Honey, they broke racial on me. And I just thought, okay, troll time, let me just stop. Like, okay. The conversation stopped because that person wasn't really about problem solving. It's like they wanted to win an argument. The reality is that we are disabling our parents when we assume that they cannot do something. So here's a thought. Let's forge a relationship with the parents so we can determine or learn or ask, is there something I can help you with? She needs to do this. Are you clear on how this works? Give me a call. It's not a problem. We don't just assume anything. And when we have relationships with people, we can ask.
Okay, so I just wanted to pause here real quick and show you the tweets that Dr. Sanders was referencing. So let's check them out. So this was the main tweet right here. Author Arthur H. Camus, with distance learning at home, beware of arguments for homeschooling, distance learning, and private choice once this crisis is over. So we can clearly see where he stands on the school choice. And then she replies, sir, respectfully, what part of public education is worth holding on to? Achievement? The last 5 decades of reform? Teacher attrition? Graduation rates? Literacy? Classroom management? Grading policies? Sped ed services? Parent involvement? Please share with me your perspective. And then we have, this is who she was talking about tweeting back at her. The alternative is an uneducated public, which I find terrifying. The current outcomes are an uneducated public. True, but we haven't given up. A lack of public option only further empowers the elite. And then she replies, so continue to fund a system that fails to provide what it's designated to provide. It's the lack of knowledge and critical thinking that further empowers the elite. And then this is specifically the part where we're talking about that underestimation of parents, which really can ultimately be offensive. So it says, what's your option? Parents of the most vulnerable can't do it. Okay, I'm glad to know where you stand on it. She goes, herein lies the major problem. The assumption that this group or that group is incapable of this or that. Identify the most vulnerable. People, poverty does not equal failure. Overdependence on entitlements, low expectations, and assumptions equal failure. And then she says, oh my God, is that a fake profile picture? I bet you never had to feed your kids government cheese. And then she says, I guess I touched a nerve somewhere. So again, she's accusing her of using a profile picture of somebody who's black, but not actually being black. So again, this person's racism is showing its very ugly head right now. And then it goes on and she says, parents of most of my students are working 2 to 3 jobs to stay afloat. Many kids are living with elderly grandparents or other relatives. They don't have money for books, etc. Please explain your solution that doesn't leave the poor behind. And then Teresa replies, also, we have money for what we want. If you smoke, drink, have cable, you can buy a book. You need books? They're free somewhere in America. And then the person replies, I'm a teacher. Finding free books sounds good. Tell me, how does your parent find books for free? Or how does a parent find books for free? In their spare time, of course, after they work in 80 hours. And then she says, half-price books. Simply ask. Kindle, hundreds of titles, pre-K to adult, free. Ask. You'd be amazed how well that works. Oh, and all poor parents don't work 80 hours. Many don't work at all. Let's rally behind them. And then she finishes off saying, poverty by itself is not an excuse for failure. Children can learn in 3 or so hours a day, 15 or 20 minutes at home. What if teachers could support instruction at home? What if we took tax dollars and used it for materials to teach at home? And so again, that just goes to this attitude of underestimating parents, what they can do, and it really just goes on to continue that cycle we're trying to break. And this is a question that racks my mind as well. It's like, what is that line between empathy and actually just co-signing excuses? And it's definitely a line that I'm going to continue to ride, and I'm grateful to have the support of people like Dr. Sanders. All right, now let's get back to it.
And I've had parents tell me, I don't even know what that is. It's like, okay, no problem. Let me get you some supports. We can help our parents help their children. But all of this, well, they won't do it, or most parents will support their children.
Exactly.
Most parents will. All of them won't, and we won't worry about the ones that won't. We'll still keep working with them, but we'll really rally behind the ones that want it, they're ready. We'll rally behind them, and then we'll still encourage the ones who are having a harder time.
Exactly. You gotta meet people where they are. And I do think too, like if they can kind of see it working successfully, they'll be like, see a good model, and then it just kind of naturally will happen. And you don't need to point fingers at anybody, and you don't need to tell them what they're not doing. Like, they'll get it. People are smart. They figure out how to get in line to get the food and to get whatever they need to get. They're gonna get it.
They are, and it's like we assume that they can't figure out that 1 and 1 is 2. Stop. I have yet to meet the parent that says, I want my kid to be the biggest screw up ever in life. I've not met that parent yet. And so instead of us just assuming what they can't do, and I mean, I tell you, just within the last couple hours, the conversation went on. You'll be able to see it in my feed.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get those tweets and put them up here, like for the video while it's going on.
It's like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just thinking, like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, wow. So you know what? You can't stop small-mindedness. You can't fight small-mindedness. what you do is you keep talking. And the small-minded people, they may not say anything, but they're in the corner listening. That's it.
I agree with that. Yep. And so that kind of brings us to like this issue really is at a nexus point with like a lot of those racial issues, which you kind of mentioned. So there's a lot of issues going on in terms of like recruiting and retaining teachers of color. And then there's also the issue surrounding like, especially like young boys of color and suspension and special education. But at the same time, it's really difficult to talk about those issues. Right?
Yes.
Because then
Yes.
people say things like, oh, well, you're privileged or you're racist. And so like, how do we have these conversations and get around those things of like people telling you that you're racist or like, you know, you can't like the whole like colorblind thing. If you don't see my color, then you don't see me. And then people like, well, that's not really what I mean by that. So how can we move beyond that and actually get to those conversations like you're talking about?
I think that if we all just kind of grew up and just stop it already, like stop. It seems like over time we have evolved into a bunch of weak, flimsy people who cannot take one bit of uncomfortable or offense. The reality is there are times that people say things, the racial faux pas, but they didn't mean it. It just came out that way. It was racist, but their intent was not racist. But yet they get massacred for that. They lose their jobs. They get roasted on social media. The ability for them to make a mistake has been taken away. So the way people don't make mistakes is they're quiet. They won't say anything. The same person who on the Twitter feed that busted out and said something about, phew, this Black woman doesn't know anything about racial injustice or white supremacy and all this. And I just put full alert. Because what's the point in engaging somebody on that level? What's the point? But I noticed no one else touched that statement. No one else commented on it. No one else said anything about it. People just stayed away from it because that's scary territory. Nobody wants to go there.
I mean, I seen it. I saw it. Like, I went to this training. It was like we had our Chancellor's Day, and they had like a keynote speaker, and it was I'll have to get the woman's name, but she was a professor at Teachers College, Columbia Teachers College. A Black woman, and she gave this like really like one of those like anti-racist kind of things and telling everybody they have to do like an self-inventory and like unpack all of their racist things. And then she like ended the session by asking for like 3 people to comment, and all 3 people were Black people. And then she was like, you know, I'd like to get our white brothers and sisters in there. And it still took like 15 or 20 seconds for somebody to raise their hand because, you know, and again, people will say, oh, well, that's your white fragility and things like that. But I think that people don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want to offend somebody. And our intentions like truly are good most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah.
So it's one of those so difficult, and I'm just like really grateful that I'm able to have this conversation with you and really unpack these issues that can be such hot topics and a lot of people don't like to touch. And
it's sad because we really do lose opportunities to learn. We lose opportunities to learn why something was offensive or wrong. We lose an opportunity to correct one another in love. So people learn. I believe that race and racial issues have been used very effectively to divide us and to keep us separate. And when you're not discussing anything and you're only left to your thoughts, you're thinking the worst all the time. Well, Steph said, when you don't even realize you said something wrong. Or, you know, Teresa said, I didn't know I stepped on your foot. I'm sorry. Well, if we don't talk, we're not going to know that we were offensive. And then offensive. You're not going to make it through life and never be offended. Embrace it. Offense happens. It does. even purposeful offense, like the person on the Twitter feed. What do you do with that? You don't respond to it. What's the point? That's not the first time I've ever dealt with racism. But 90% of the time when I do deal with it, it's accidental. It's situational. Sometimes it's generational. I'm in East Texas. I mean, come on.
Right.
So it is what it is. But I choose to not let that be the altar that I sacrifice myself on.
Right. And I feel like a lot of times they want you to react and prove them right. They want you to show them that you're right, or they're right about what they say. But when you show them that human side, then just like you said, they might not admit it. They're not going to save face in that moment, but they're going to walk away and they're going to be like, wow, like I feel gross now, you know?
Yeah, you know, and you know what, and if they do, that's good. And that same person could come back to me, because sometimes they do, on the inbox, on the DM. They won't do it in public. They'll come back on that DM. And you know what? I'll still give them a play, because you don't have to show it publicly. If this little interaction is going to help you be this much better, I'll give you a play, even at the end, even though you tried to call me on my feed. It's all good. Growth is what we're looking for. Learning is what we're looking for. I've been in this body a long time. There's nothing that they can say that I've not heard. I mean, come on. So if we remember, if we treat everybody well, if we assume the best of everybody, which I sometimes have a hard time doing, I have to be honest. If we assume the best, I'm just keeping it real. If I assume the best of everybody, then the racial stuff is not going to matter. If you say something and I'm like, no, Stephanie, she's cool, let me go ahead and just mention it or not. Or if I say something and you're like, hey, Teresa, you know, then it's, we got an alert.
Okay.
Then our relationship is enough to ride us through that.
Exactly. Yeah. I have some of the like best relationships with people who I like totally don't see like politically eye to eye with at all, but like I know that they're gonna be there to ride with me. Like I know that our mission is the same. And and oftentimes too, I appreciate like the way that we can like play devil's advocate with each other, and then we open each other up to these ways, and I'm like, you know what, I should actually, you know, I guess, like the field trip thing. Like I was pretty liberal about field trips, but like there was a couple kids who I was like, yo, like they never come to school. Now that all of a sudden they like hippie hoo rah for this field trip. But my colleague was like, no, like you should always let them go on field trips no matter what. And so like this year I have totally changed my tune, and I'm definitely like, let them go. Let them do the field trip. Let them play the sport. You know, once we win them over, then we're going to get them to do the work.
Boy, look at there. That's what I'm talking. Oh boy, that it's like makes my heart happy to hear that, because it's like, okay, let's look at this a different way. Let's come through the back door and get them. You gotta catch them before you can clean them. You know what I mean? So rather than leaving them to the side, get them the way you can. Get them how you can. And if a field trip or a sport is how you get them, then you've won. You didn't lose anything.
Exactly.
And today with these kids and their parents and our colleagues and ourselves, sometimes we do have to use that back door. We just do.
Oh, wait, I just got an alert. They lost school funding because the kid didn't get the grade. They didn't pass the test. That's all we got to say there. I did want to spiral back around though to more focus on like the issue of teachers of color in the classroom. I know when I was taking the EdTPA, which is like the new national standard for getting certified as a teacher, there was a lot of talk going on about how like the passing rates for people of color were way lower than like the average for, I guess, like white people. And so what is your whole view? I mean, obviously, like, I do think that representation matters. Like, I know as a female, like when I see another woman like doing her thing, I'm like, okay, you go girl, like on another level that I might not be on. Same thing, like I'm not Jewish, like I'm not a practicing religious Jewish, but like growing up, if I met somebody who was Jewish, like I would be more drawn to them. So what is your whole take on getting more teachers of color in the classroom and the push for that, and what it might mean for the system overall?
Okay, so because I am who I am is one that I don't get into the whole race solid. Um, I don't, that's not my take on everything. Rather than a person of color in the classroom, can we get a good teacher in the classroom?
Mm.
Can we get a teacher who can teach in this classroom? Because in the end, it's the outcomes that we want. And if an Indian or an Asian or an African or an African American or a European, the Easter Bunny, anybody who can come in and teach these kids, that's who we want. Now, do we want strong role models for our children in all races and cultures? Sure we do. Do they have to be teachers? Not necessarily. How about parents? How about relatives and friends and teachers? But is it really on us to be the Martin Luther King of every system for our children? No, I don't care who teaches my kid, as long as that person can teach my kid well. Do I feel like my child needs more Black teachers, or any child needs more Black or any color teachers? I don't feel that way. A lot of people do. Statistically, it doesn't show that much of a difference. I've seen good and bad in all teachers, including teachers of color. For
So
those
that's
who
interesting you say this. Because there's an often quoted statistic about how if a student of color has a teacher of color before third grade, that they're much more likely to graduate. Have you heard that?
I've not ever seen that statistic. I've never seen it. I will definitely research that though.
Okay. No, but I mean, I definitely agree with you that and they show this too, like with like college acceptance, and how if you get accepted into like a college or a place that you're mismatched with, then you actually have a worse outcome as a student. And I would imagine the same would apply as a teacher. Like if you kind of get pushed through the teaching system because they're like, oh, we need teachers of color, we need, this kind of teacher, we need that kind of teacher, and they kind of like lower the standards for you, then you're going to get there and you're not going to feel prepared.
I'm trying to figure out what are they, so Black kid, Black teacher, what is it there that makes that teacher more suitable than a white teacher? What is it? I'm trying to figure that out still to this day. What is it about the Black teacher and this Black kid? They'll say, oh, cultural awareness. Oh, the whole hair issue. Oh, we have a way of Black people speaking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to be very familiar sometimes. As teachers, we are still professional with our parents, but we might say, "Girl, look, okay." Whereas maybe to somebody else, we won't say that. So the familiarity is there. The cultural, understanding, a lot of the religious understanding, it's there. But is it affecting outcomes?
Mm.
There's racism in education. Oh yeah, hands down. So, and that includes by teachers of color as well. What we want are good teachers. Can we please stop the dividing fight of race and just bring good teachers in? Racism is all throughout schools, we know it. But to continue to, nope, we need teachers of color. If somebody can convince me of that, then I'll buy. But I don't think that's true. Me personally, I feel like a good teacher is what all students need.
I second that. I think it's, something I've been thinking about too in this kind of like new reality of teaching is we're going to really see what teachers kind of sink and what ones are doing triple backflips off the diving board and stuff like that. So.
Yep, indeed. This is going to show us how the system has worked up into this point. This is going to show also a lot of parents what their kids don't know. And this is going to shine a light on a lot of deficiencies in education, because when parents are at home listening to their children read and their kid has A's and B's on their report card and reading, and they hear their kid struggling, they're going to be wondering, like, wait a minute, what is going on here? A lot of that, I believe there's going to be a lot more talk about school choice. homeschooling, education alternatives, because now if parents are really working with their children, they're going to see things that perhaps they were not able to see before because they were working. They didn't get a chance to sit, listen to them read or see them write. Now that they're home, maybe they'll see more of that. And a lot of people are going to be disappointed. Some people are going to celebrate, and some people are going to be very upset.
Yep. And I think too, and I'm just thinking like, school, how much do they pay? They pay like $15,000 something dollars per kid or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking like, okay, if I like had an online class and like maybe I charged like $20 like per kid a month or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so per family, like, okay, so it would be $240 for one course for a whole year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so you times that by 5. So that's like $1,000. So say that $1,000, you could get 5 teachers, 5 courses. I'm just thinking like how much less expensive it would be to kind of have this like mixed system. And then you'd be empowering the teachers directly. You'd be cutting out all the bureaucracy.
Yes. Hybrid systems or like just what you just brought up. Are you kidding me? That's a model that can be tested right now.
And teachers could make a lot more money too.
Yes, they could. And then but you got to remember now, where are we going to be getting this money from? Education is not about education. Education is about money. Standardized testing is not about assessment. Standardized testing is about money.
It's going to be a lot of people trying to hold on to their positions of power.
Exactly true. But parents have the ultimate power. And when parents have knowledge, parents can make informed decisions. That's why parents are not informed. It's not like a lot of parents don't care, but schools are not really upfront about, hey, did you know that this is available to your kid if, oh, they're not going to tell you that. And then they don't want us to tell them that.
And that's why they needed, so they gave us like a snow day on Monday, and then we're having training today, tomorrow, and Thursday. And so I was like, why don't we just start on Monday with it? And now it's like, well, they had to plan how they were going to sell this to everybody, because they don't want to tell them too much. They got to tell them something.
It's all smoke and mirrors. My blog, I talk about it all the time. It's the truth. I don't care. I am first and foremost. I love public schools. Loved when I taught in public schools. Love it. Still love it. And I am down for public school teachers. I don't like education the way it's broken right now. I don't. My goal is 2 things: informed parents and educated children. If anybody else wants to know what's her agenda, informed parents, educated children. That's it. Black, white, Hispanic, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Informed parents, educated children. That's it. Those are what's your agenda? That's what my agenda is. And we please inform the parents so they can make a decision, because those are their children, so they can make a decision that says yes to this or no to this. And then can we just teach these children and stop playing?
I heard DeAngelis, I forget his first name.
Corey DeAngelis, that's my Twitter. Yes.
Yep. I think I probably found him through you interacting with him. He put out a tweet the other day. He was like, a good thing they called it government schools and not public schools, right? Because it's a government monopoly. The public don't really have any choice.
The public has no choice. And then we've been not taught for so long. We've been taught to not think, just roll with it. So now they're kind of just trust them. It's the government. They're going to do right by us. No, they're not. Everybody in the government is not bad, and everybody in public schools are not bad, but everybody doesn't have your child's best interest at heart.
Exactly. Tell me about your shirt. It says, "You bum."
This is all about LeBron James tweeting to President Trump, calling him a bum.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I'll say about that. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm sorry. I'm not. And, it's all about staying together, trying to get through this whole pandemic. So, and I'll never, publicly get up and, I really try not to do that, but I'm sorry. Can't. So that was my little snide remark.
Okay.
So there you go.
All right, so we'll tell people, you know, if they want to learn more about that, go check out the tweet, follow the Twitter hole.
This was early on too, so this was way back. So anyway, you can just like tweet LeBron James bum or whatever. But you know what? I don't even get stuck with the politics, because in the end, none of it is about education. If we think that politicians and policymakers are going to fix education for us, we are sadly mistaken. It's parents like you and me and those out there who want what's best for their children and know that there's more than one way to get there. We're going to have to start taking it back. I'm not saying cripple public schools. I'm saying improve or give us the money.
Nice. So, and I mean, the last question I wanted to end off, and I mean, you've pretty much touched on this all throughout, but maybe you could just like kind of summarize it and bring it all together. So like, what is your vision of education in America? And then what are some steps that we could start taking like right now to do it, you know, in 6 months, in a year? How do we get there?
Okay, so for me, you know, so convenient. So for me, you know, I created my own very small schools. And so for me, I had to come out. I had to come out because I could no longer be a part of just watching people's kids getting railroaded. I couldn't do it anymore. And so my conscience was just, I could not do it anymore. Plus I was recovering from an injury. I was injured at school. So everything kind of just came together. But I've been wanting to do my own thing for a long time. But you also touched on it. It's when you can create something that works. I want education to look like this. You can have public schools, and then you have a hybrid over here, and then you have homeschooling co-ops over here, and then you have, you know, tech centers over here. You've got using Zoom or another platform like Beluga or something like that to teach kids in the way they learn best. Some kids can do a hybrid, it's going to be great. Some kids can go completely online, it's going to be great. Some kids need to be in the classroom, and that's great. Can we just do what works for the kids and stop doing a one size fits all that doesn't work for anybody? And the sad part is that the data shows us that it doesn't work. But yet somehow we don't want to look at the data. The data is supposed to.
We want the data. We want it though.
Yeah. We want that data to inform instruction. We want it because it must inform instruction. But we're refusing to look at the data that says, hello, for the last 50 years, education reform has not worked. 50 years. So you mean to tell me we've been at this, and that's at least 50 years, and it's still not working? That's like your 50-year-old son living in your basement. He's not going to move. He's not. He's not going to move. He's not going to. Public education is not going to move. But there's plenty of administrators who make good money. There's plenty of policymakers and leadership that are making a lot of money. But these children, when you're hitting the 8th and 9th grade and you can't read, that is unacceptable. Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Totally.
And so people like me and you just said something. You came up with a thought. You might want to just sit down and roll that thought around your head, because that could be something that you end up reading. It's an opportunity for us to try different things. And if the coronavirus didn't teach us anything, it taught us we've got to come up with something else. We had no disaster plan. Now everybody's at home and everybody's kind of twiddling their thumbs. People right now are thinking, how can I make this work? Well, you came up with something. I came up with something. Others will come up with things. And I want education. You know how diverse our student body is? I want education options to be just as diverse.
That sound like, I'm thinking of the Federalist Papers, you know, when they talked about how we have to have a lot of different factions in
Mm-hmm.
order to have like
Yes.
a lively democracy. And that's totally how I see it. And that's why I also like how the charter schools work, is like they have their own little network, but
Mm-hmm.
they are like, this is our thing and you guys can do your own thing.
Yes. Yes.
Versus the you know, in New York City, it's the same district, the same person is in charge of all 5 boroughs. And you know, there's a little variation, like schools, like we're law and community service, and then there's arts, and then there's like, you know, everybody has their little specialty, but it's just a name. It don't
Uh,
really mean anything. And
mm.
the chancellor's the one at the end of the day who gets to tell us like, you have to be in school for 3 days and this is the way that you're going to train for this. And I'm like, yo, I'm calling out tomorrow and I'm zooming in, because that's what we did today. We sat in our own classroom by ourselves on Zoom. Like, I could do that from home, thank you.
No,
Take my
seriously.
sick days, I don't care.
Um, wow. So you had to go to school to sit in your own classroom to do this.
Yep.
So it's that kind of
Right.
ridiculousness that just, I can't.
Exactly.
In the meantime, the children aren't learning. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
So I tell you what, you guys sit there and play fast and loose with your time. But in the meantime, I'm going to figure out, if I don't do anything else, I can call my kids and say, hey, how are you today? What are you doing?
Yep.
I want you to write me a letter, and, you know, maybe you can tell the mom and dad, get them a stamp and envelope so you can mail it to me. That's writing. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm going to Zoom with you and you can show me what you wrote or something. It doesn't have to be official learning. Can we
Is there a
just do
standard for
something?
that?
You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh my goodness, can it be just, we're doing things academic? When you're boiling water, quick, somebody tell me, what's the boiling point? Can you, we can tell parents that.
Exactly.
And if they don't know, the parents probably have better tricks than we have. And so it's, you know, parents are the experts of their own kids. So you know what? I'm actually going to keep my ear to the ground on what you just said about what your thoughts were about, hey, you know what? We can do this and have this many kids. I'm going to keep my ear to the ground on that, because, you know, you better run with that before someone else does.
I know, I shouldn't have said it, right? I'll cut that part out of the video. No, it's equal opportunity. I believe in, you know, the wealth of everything. It's room for everybody out here. And
in education, there's room at the top for anybody willing to work to get there. If you want to create the same exact thing that I'm doing, have at it. Because if you're teaching kids, I'm happy.
Exactly.
That's it. It's not about the money. It's about, can you teach these kids?
Exactly.
And I teach
the world is so abundant. Yeah, and you're gonna have to send me all that stuff. I'm gonna link it. I'm gonna make sure I have all the images up there for everybody so that they could check you out. I mean, I'm a huge fan of you, so I'm gonna definitely making sure anybody who I follow checks you out. And
thank you.
And yeah, so is there anything you want to leave us with before we get out of here?
You know, I just wanted to ask you, you had said about the one person being in charge of like all the boroughs as it relates to education. That is huge. So in your opinion, is that effective? Is it, I mean, one person over all of the boroughs, that's huge. And
I mean, I think, and this is also like where some people like lose me with like government policy, is they come up with these things that are about like more equity, but they're just transferring power in a concentrated way to somebody else. And anytime you concentrate power, it doesn't matter like if the intent is equity. This is a place where intent doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
If you're concentrating power, it's gonna lead to corruption, no matter what.
Every time.
And you know, maybe New York City does need somebody who is like kind of like overseeing public education, but like their role shouldn't be to dictate to thousands of schools like how they should be rolling out online learning. It should be providing some overall guidance and some resources and maybe some more, you know, funding or whatever we need, but each school should be able to implement that in the way that makes most sense for them. Like if you're in elementary school and like you guys need to physically come together because you have to print out packets because elementary school kids don't necessarily have the same ability to do like the online thing, like maybe it would make sense to go into the, like, maybe you work at home for one day and then you come into the building for one day so everybody can print things out and send them out. Okay, if that's what you need to do. But like in our schools are like, most of our teachers already use Google Classroom to an extent. We have an online grading book. Our kids have like online Regents Prep, like multiple choice programs that we use. So we're pretty like turnkey here for and ready for this. But you know, like just for example, the chancellor, he came in and he hired like 10 or 12 new special superintendents and gave them salaries of like almost $200,000, increased other people's salaries by like over 200,000. So it's like the bloat of bureaucracy is out of control.
Yeah.
And it's all in the name of equity for all, like.
Except for the kids.
Exactly.
And so everybody's getting all these big hefty paychecks, but the kids are still not achieving.
Exactly.
So,
and my classroom is not funded. Like,
yeah.
You know, they want to give us a hard time about having like 4 school counselors or something, and we're struggling with our budget. And they're like, all right, well, get rid of a counselor or get rid of that new teacher you hired. And I'm like, how about you get rid of one of your new superintendents, and then 5 schools can have 5 new teachers? How about that?
How about
or like
that?
maybe not that many, but you know.
How about that? Yeah, get rid of one and you can at least get 3 teachers out of that. Exactly. You can get at least 3 teachers out of that.
So,
but you notice how nobody, and that happens in districts everywhere. Dallas ISD is a huge district here, and there's one person over all of the schools. You have different areas, kind of like the way that the boroughs are separated, but it's all Dallas. And I've long thought that, no, there needs to be just one person that covers this, one person that covers that. And then you could also see, if you have great success over here, but not necessarily over here, well, can we look at what might they be doing?
Exactly.
We could be doing differently. But when the one mind is thinking about all of them, you're limited to the one.
Like federalism it can be applied so many places. You need to have a layered cake. And especially now with technology, you know, we can bring things to scale and in perpetuity so easily.
Yes.
So, yeah. Oh man, we are definitely, you know, on the same vision. I love that we can make this happen from 2,000 some odd miles away.
Yes. And, clearly kindred spirits, and I dig that. I totally dig it. And again, I'm going to press you. Don't sleep on that idea you had. Don't.
Oh, I'm definitely not. Like I'm not sleeping at all right now. But so I will tell you, like I did like a little breathing class yesterday, and that made me feel good. It's what I needed. But this conversation has me like my optimism and all that is just so much better. I feel so much better about everything right now. So we definitely gonna have to stay in contact, you know, even if it's just like my own selfish but
absolutely. That's how we improve education.
Exactly. So thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope to be able to come back sometime, okay?
Yeah, no, definitely. We're gonna get you back in here soon.
Well, I tell you what, I got a lot of people in New York and Queens. When I come to see them, I'm coming to see you.
I bet.
Okay. All righty, girl. Talk to you soon.
See, what did I tell you? Oh, talking that talk, spitting those flames, and I really don't have anything else to add. Make sure you go follow Dr. Teresa Sanders. She's on Twitter. She's on IG. Make sure you go grab her free book, From Bricks to Clicks, and we gotta keep this movement going. It's that teacher power. All right? So again, if you haven't already, I really don't know what you're waiting for. Smash that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss any episodes coming out once a week. And I actually got a few extra special episodes coming at you. And until next time, stay foolish, y'all.